Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It is Friday, November 3rd, and it is officially basketball season. Basketball's back, hoop season. The Jazz season is already underway here in Salt Lake, and college hoops is next in line. Starting up this next week, we're starting to get a little taste of these in-state college programs. And today we get a preview of one of those, the Utah State Aggies, welcoming in Andrew Hyde again from Cache Valley. How you doing, Andrew?
Doing well. How are you doing, Caleb?
Doing all right. This fine Friday. I understand that the Aggies, the men's basketball team, actually unofficially starts with an exhibition tonight. Is that correct?
That is right. I'll be there. I'm super excited to see the team play together.
Cool. A lot of new things around this team. New coach and Danny Sprinkle, who you had the chance to interview, and we'll talk a lot about him. They're playing his former team. Is that correct? Montana State.
Well, that's what I thought. I think it's kind of like a Montana State Tech or something. I don't know. I don't
Oh,
think it's the
okay.
exact same because that's what I originally thought too. But I don't think it's the exact same squad.
Gotcha.
But I would have to look into that again.
Okay, yeah, they always get you with that little like technical school or school of the mines or those 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 those
Exactly.
those,
Exactly.
those fun little things. But nonetheless, yeah. So new coach for the Aggies. A lot of new players. I think I read in your article only three returning players from last year's team. That was one of the better teams in recent Aggie history. And I thought it'd be important to kind of talk about Utah State because as you mentioned in this article, as Sprinkle mentioned, I think in one of his quotes, Logan is a basketball town. They love Aggie basketball, especially in seasons when Aggie football is not doing as well, as we were talking about last time you were on the show. And obviously they've got some chances to hopefully make up some ground, but basketball has a chance to kind of get a share of the spotlight now, with some fresh faces, fresh coach, and a new team. So I'm curious, just kind of in your conversation with Danny Sprinkle, who I mean, one of the best names in college basketball, by the way, Danny Sprinkle, awesome. What were just some of your impressions, I guess, just getting the chance to talk with this new coach?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first thing that you have to realize before we even get into that is if you thought there was a lot of turnover in the Utah State football team, this is a completely different story. It's more, it's more with this Aggie basketball team. The football team, there was like 60 something new faces, which is a lot. The basketball team, there, like you said, there's only three returning players. Then out of those three players, only one has ever seen the court in an Aggie uniform. So it's not like there's a lot of returning production either. Almost no points, no assists, no rebounds returning for the Aggies. And so Danny Sprinkle, he is brought together this team of people from across the world. There's people from Europe. There's people from all across the United States. Transfers from Coastal Carolina, and I mean they're everywhere. And there's guys that are here in the Valley. There's recruits, new high school recruits from different parts of the United States, and they're all coming together on this team. And so, as far as Danny Sprinkle and his outlook on the team, obviously he's patient. He's not expecting this team to go out there and win all of their games or win 26 games like they did last year. It's a very different situation than it was last year. And so his idea, I think, is more of a growth mindset. He's expecting a few years to be able to build up this program again, but yeah, definitely something that not a lot of college coaches have seen in any sport, and not something that we've seen up for this Utah State basketball team in quite a while.
Yeah, so you mentioned needing some patience, and it looks like, I mean, they'll have a chance to kind of have a bit of a slow ramp up to the season. The non-conference schedule, not super eye-catching or super difficult, I would say. But and obviously until they get into that Mountain West play in not till January, so they'll have a couple months of ramp up, playing games like this exhibition tonight. Officially start the season Monday against South Dakota Mines. So once again, one of these teams who, not a national brand by any means, not a team that anybody's going to get up for necessarily. So they kind of have a chance. It seems like to me to almost ease into this season in a very important moment when that's very necessary for a new team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be so important. I mean, just looking at their schedule, they don't have anybody, any non-conference games that are, like you said, that are going to bring a whole bunch of people out. They're not playing any big Duke or, I mean, they're not playing anybody big. They've got SUU and University of San Diego, not San Diego State, but they've got all these just these teams um, that are slotted in. And I think that's going to be really important because as I talked to Danny Sprinkle, he doesn't have a starting five, which is pretty reasonable because they started camp maybe a month ago or so. And so they still don't have a starting five solidified. And so that not only is that a ramp up time, but that's also a time of self discovery, really figuring out who this Aggies team is and which players are going to show up. A lot of these guys are really talented, but they haven't seen the court. I mean, you look at the returners, two of the returners, three of the return, all three, two of them are Cache Valley guys, and both of them haven't really seen the court. I think both served missions, if I'm remembering correctly. And then the other one, he was a four-star recruit originally, Isaac Johnson. He was out of he went to Oregon originally, served a mission, went to Oregon, and then transferred to Utah State. But he hasn't seen the court in a while, and so really there's a lot of talent on this team. It's not a lack of talent that's the problem. It's really going to be a question of who shows up when the season's underway. And so that, like you said, that ramp up period, this next month or so, 2 months or so before we get into conference play is going to be absolutely critical for the Aggies. And it is about 2 months exactly. Their first conference game is going to be at Air Force on January 2nd.
You mentioned Isaac Johnson there, the younger brother of Spencer Johnson on BYU, I believe. And it's interesting to note as well as I'm looking at this Utah State schedule, it seems like they benefited from BYU's move to the Big 12 and being able to schedule a few West Coast Conference teams in non-conference playing San Diego in Logan December 6th, then going to Santa Clara and then playing USF San Francisco at the Delta Center. So that's kind of funny that they were able to get a few of those WCC left behinds.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see that game at the Delta Center, especially. It's always fun to play in a venue like that, I think, for those guys.
And then other non-conference, they're going to the Cayman Islands, playing in the Cayman Islands Classic. They'll get a chance to play against Marshall, and then in that kind of tournament style, they don't know the rest of their opponents, but they'll have other potentially some other great teams. Do you know who the other teams in that Classic are?
I'm not sure. I did look. There wasn't anybody that I was really amazed by, but I think at the end of the day, doesn't really matter who you're playing. You're going to the Cayman
Yeah,
Islands, right?
yeah, exactly.
I think that's the best part. But I mean, anytime you can get wins in a venue like that, in a tournament like that, it's huge for the confidence of the team.
Awesome. So as you mentioned in your article, the first chance for fans to get out and support this team, which is something that Sprinkle mentioned, right? He's like, we're gonna need the fans. We need some. There's not a lot of consistency in this program, but the one consistent factor, hopefully, will be the fans, right? So they can come out tonight, exhibition against Montana State University Billings is the official name of that team, and then Monday against South Dakota Mines. So just how big do you think will be kind of like the fan student section, just kind of like the community factor here with Aggie basketball?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the University of Utah and BYU, and both have pretty incredible student sections and supporters. But then you look at Utah State, and they have I mean, they're nothing to sneeze at either. They've got a really incredible supporting, especially with the student section. But the difference is you just don't see the same amount of production with Utah State. So I think it's actually pretty impressive that these fans keep coming back and they keep supporting. And if you've ever been up to the Valley, it's just the whole valley is Utah State fans. You try, I mean, I knew a guy here that he was looking for a University of Utah hat a few days ago, and he couldn't find it at any store in Cache Valley because everywhere is just Utah State, Utah State. So tons of support for the team here. And I think from football, we've seen that the fans still show up, the students especially, they still show up, they love their team. And so the question is going to be whether or not they can stick through it. It could easily be a tough couple of years here for the Utah State basketball team. I don't have a lot of doubt that there's going to be any difficulty rebounding over the next 2 years. I think Utah State will get back to where they were at. But just the nature of the changes that are going on, I think these fans are going to be absolutely critical. Creating, I was looking I was looking at some stats the other day. I can't remember. I think it was in like 2018 or 2019, those 2 years maybe. Um, the Aggies basketball team had like a 90% record at home. They were like 900 at home, which is incredible for any team. And so I think if they can develop that type of home court advantage, especially in a season like this where they're struggling, that would be absolutely critical. And I think that's why Danny Sprinkle was so adamant about trying to make sure that those fans are still there supporting the team, even when things probably aren't looking the way that they might like them to look.
Yeah, I've actually never been to the Spectrum. So this may be the season that I have to get in. Maybe get in on the ground level with Danny Sprinkle and kind of follow this team. It's a little harder to make my way up there during basketball season with the Utah weather, but I may have to visit the Spectrum to see what it's all about.
Yeah, just make sure you got snow tires, but you
Exactly.
can
Actually, speaking of that, I'm on my way after this interview to get new tires. So there
perfect.
you
There
go.
you go. Make sure you get some snow tires on there. But yeah, it definitely if you're in the area, if you're in the if you live somewhere within a few hours of Logan, and you're looking for something to do this winter, it's definitely. I mean, tickets aren't super expensive, but getting out to one of those games in the Spectrum, it's pretty incredible to see, especially what the student section can do. The student section fills about half of the stadium. Maybe not quite that, maybe 40%, but it's incredible. It's massive, and it's a pretty loud atmosphere there. It's a lot of fun. Great venue for college basketball.
Sounds like it. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Andrew. Look forward to your coverage starting tonight, and then from here on out with Aggie basketball. Make sure you guys are following Andrew on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, at a Hyde 05. And yeah, I look forward to a lot more Aggie basketball coming our way.
Me too. I'm super excited. Ready for college basketball to start.